Hello, and welcome to Brand Clarity by Visions to Images, where we focus on strategy and business development for entrepreneurs at all different levels through branding and digital marketing techniques. Susie Liberatore is the founder and art director of Visions to Images Creative Services, LLC. For the last decade, she has personally been instrumental in bridging gaps between the global digital market and neighborhood locations for some of the biggest brands around. Growth is possible for even a single location with the right professional branding techniques and Susie's signature strategies of Visions to Images. Stand out from your competitors and bring your visions to life while watching your sales skyrocket. Your host for this is Susie Liberatore, owner of Visions to Images.
Today on the podcast, I have Terese McGroarty, and she's a franchise consultant, and I'm super excited to have her on to talk about franchise and all of the great benefits of that. As you know, we work with franchises on different levels, and so I'm super excited to kind of get into this category today. Thanks for being on.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to expand people's knowledge.
Yes. Well, and so many times before we get into it, people think franchises are not locally owned and operated, and that's just there's so much more to it. So I love this conversation. Tell us a little bit about how you got started in this field.
Well, actually, when my husband and I were 21, we bought our first franchise. We bought a Shell station. So we, just grew from that. We bought 3 Shell stations, and then we sold those and we bought a Goodyear. So we have a great background in franchising. And actually, our Goodyear business manager, when we were franchised, he was laid off from Goodyear.
Okay.
And he bought this FranNet franchise. So FranNet of Northern Ohio really encompasses everything but Cincinnati, Dayton, Columbus, and Cincinnati, Dayton, and Columbus. And he called me one day and said, you would be really a good fit for this. And, do you want to talk about it? And so 8 years later, this is what I'm still doing because I am a good fit and I really love helping people change their lives.
That's amazing. I think to some extent, like I said, people think that franchising is like this big thing, right? And so this is kind of where we developed our niche, so to speak. We still work with corporations, et cetera. But during the pandemic, people were like, I want to support small business owners and not the big chains. But they forgot that all these people that own these franchises are locally owned and operated, and they're still giving back in the community. So that's kind of where we came into place with a lot of franchises that we developed was during the pandemic, because they wanted to show up and show like, hey, we're here. We go to the same schools. We're doing all the same stuff. We are just as much of a supporter as anybody else. And there's always these misconceptions in the franchise industry. Would you agree?
I would agree. That is one big misconception. The other big misconception is that it's French fries, right? Mostly French fries.
Right.
And teaching, that there are so many opportunities out there. I think the outcome of that whole pandemic thing has been that franchisees have gotten much more involved in their community so that they can say, no, this is who we are, this is where we are, and we're giving back. And small business is now really the leader of hiring people. Places like Chevy and GM, Ford, all of them, they're not hiring like they used to. So we are the ones, small businesses are the ones that are the backbone of the U.S.
I would agree. A lot of my franchise clients, the franchisees, they're all like saying, we're hiring, and they're giving back to the community. Like they're the biggest supporters in providing those jobs and supporting. And it's funny, whenever I told people, we work with franchises. Oh, like McDonald's? I was like, no, not quite. But, right. So there is that misconception too. I've never thought of that one. I mean, there's so much more, and people think it's always like fast food, and there's so many around us that we don't even know about. So what kind of industries do you work with?
Well, surprisingly, not so much in food. We do a little bit of food, but not a lot of food, but almost everything else, really, home health care, pets, IT, automotive, home services, athletic concepts. So we do everything. I represent about 250 franchises.
Amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah. And we vet them out. FranNet, as I mentioned, is a franchise. So we vet them out to make sure that we're really representing companies that have a 90% or better success rate.
So what does a franchise consultant typically do?
Yeah, really what I do is we're coaches. We really coach people through a process of doing their due diligence to make sure that the franchise they're gonna look at is meeting their values, their motives, their goals, their lifestyle, and really most importantly, their budget. A
Yeah.
lot of people don't realize what's out there, and we offer what we call an entrepreneur profile just to even start, because sometimes I'm sure that you've met people that shouldn't be business owners. So we just start there. Is business ownership a good fit for you or not? And then talk about all those things: values, motives, goals, lifestyle, budget, and then find a franchise that fits that.
So you find it
Uh,
based on their needs, not the other way around.
exactly, exactly. How much do you want to make? What kind of people do you want to work with? Not everybody wants to work with teenagers. Not everybody wants to work with seniors or
Right.
professional, just really finding out what's going to make you happy to get up in the morning and, run your business.
No, I agree. That's amazing. I love that. So what makes you most excited about being in the franchise industry?
That I know it works. So I know that when I am showing somebody a franchise, I know that I have done everything to make sure that they have enough information to make a great decision. And if the decision is yes, they're going to be very successful. The other thing that I love about it is that it doesn't cost people anything to use me. And it would cost them the same if they were to look up Aussie Pet Mobile, is a franchise that I represent. So it would cost them just as much to look up Aussie Pet Mobile and say, want that franchise, as it would to just use me and have that, just some knowledge.
Right.
And the other thing is that sometimes people go, oh, I should just buy a Jimmy John's without really doing their homework. And I'm not dissing Jimmy John's. I'm just saying that if I were to buy a Dairy Queen, for instance, I love Dairy Queen ice cream. Actually, peanut butter parfaits are my favorite.
Yeah.
But probably at the end of the day, I would end up fat and broke because, it's open in the summer more hours than I would want to be open, right? All those things that I forgot to check into.
Sure. No, that makes
Uh,
perfect sense. I think it has to be feasible and good for the long term if that's what they want. If they just want to work during the summer, then maybe that's perfect for them.
exactly. So it's just really finding that fit. And then I really try to get my clients to talk to at least 10 franchisees, someone that's been in business a year, 5 years, and 10 years, someone that's not doing well, someone that's doing average, and someone that's knocking it out of the ballpark. And then I just say, close your eyes and go to the FDD and pick 4 more people. And that gives you a great way to really validate what is the culture, what is the management like, how much support do they give, all of those things that you really need to know before you get into a franchise.
Hey there, I want to interrupt this episode with a quick message. If you're listening to this podcast episode and want to learn about branding your franchise or small business, then go to brandingbridge.com. That's branding-bridge.com.
Yeah, I've heard people when they get into franchises, specifically franchisees, when they get into it, oh, I don't know if I have enough support, especially when they've already gotten into it, right? Whether that's marketing, HR, sales, like whatever that support is for them, they say, well, I don't really think that I have great support. And sometimes they might not have that. Sometimes it might be accurate, but sometimes they might not know that there even is support. So it's like a toss up of, once you get in, do you have that support, and how can you utilize it? If you don't have it, then don't go into that one. It's always interesting to hear those ones for sure.
Yeah, it really breaks my heart, when I hear people that haven't been successful, and I'll say, well, how many franchisees did you talk to before you went in?
Yeah.
Well, none. That was a good idea. Just, it's really important to do your research. And that's my goal. That's FranNet's goal, is to just really help people do their research and make sure that they're going to be successful. You look at there's emerging franchises, they don't have the history, but then that going in, and you validate differently.
Right.
And that there's maybe sometimes a bigger risk, but
Right.
sometimes emerging franchises have been in business really for 10 years, 20 years, and they just now decided to start franchising.
Yep. That's
Right.
exactly what I've ran into as well. Is I'm talking to one prospect, and they've been in business for probably like 20 some years, and they're just building out the locations now, saying, okay, I want to build a franchise model now. But they've been around for 20 years and they have that proven experience. But
Yes.
at the same time, now people might be hesitant. Well, how come you're doing it now? So, but it's understanding, is this company going to be feasible in the long run? And is all of the stuff in line?
Yeah.
Figuring all that stuff out can be beneficial.
Right. And that's why sometimes some of those emerging franchises, it's better to use a company like FranNet, because we will be able to look at it and say, you know what, maybe you don't have everything you need at this exact moment. If you do this or you do that, we do a lot of that too, of helping the newer emerging franchises look at, do you have enough people on your staff to even start? Because if you bring it to us and we sell 50 franchises in this year, do you have enough people to support that?
So what would be advice to give somebody if they're looking to get into the franchise world? What kind of advice would you give them?
There's three things. One is to make sure that you don't go in underfunded, that you really learn all about your funding options. Two is to do your homework. Talk to those 10 people that I just suggested that you talk to. It's very, very important. And then sometimes don't be in love with the salesperson. You really need to get past the salesperson, because most of the time they're not going to have anything to do with you after you sell franchise. So I always tell clients that there are some concepts that have bad salespeople, and it's a great concept. And so you need to get past that person and really look at the nitty gritty. And sometimes you have really great salespeople selling really bad concepts. So again, you need to get past the nitty gritty and make sure that you're getting all the information that you need.
Yeah, I think that you got to have, like any business, you have to have enough information going in, right? And sometimes we have to take risks, but at the same time, we have to have the information and the knowledge to be able to take that leap and that step forward. And there's going to be hiccups, right? Like any business, always going to be hiccups. But having support is huge. Even in my experience, I joined masterminds and other networking groups, etc., to get that support and that knowledge that I don't get in my community, because I'm the owner, right? So it's tough.
Right.
And so you need to build that community and build that support. If you can get that through your franchise company, that's amazing. Like that's what you need in order to be successful, as well as a bunch of other stuff. But that's like a huge thing.
Well, I think a franchise family is amazing, because when you're going in with a franchise, and that's why you want to make sure the culture is right, because when it's not just the head office that you get your support from, it's other franchisees. So like in FranNet, we have groups. So there's 5 of us that we joined up, and they encourage, everybody. And then we have a call every other week, and we talk about, what are you struggling with, whether it's getting leads or whether it's, how do I deal with this client, or maybe, for some reason we didn't have much success with that franchisor, and you know what I mean? So all of those things, that it's the family. And when you're in business for yourself, you don't necessarily have that family that can definitely understand everything about your business, right? Mm-hmm. And most franchises also have that conference once a year, which is so amazing, because every year you always meet new and different people, and hiring is hard for everybody, right? But when you talk to somebody and they say, oh, I just had this great idea about hiring and it's really working, that's everything.
So thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. That's all the questions. I think that everything is just so amazing in the franchise industry in the world. And I love what you're doing. And I thank you for all that you do, because people need that help and support.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And I love what you do too, because, people really do need, especially when it's maybe a bit of a tough time, people need to make sure they don't go dark.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have to continue to be out there marketing. And I think that the past couple of years probably even
more so, right? Exactly.
Prove that out a little bit more.
Exactly. Yeah.
You got to stay out there, and as franchisees, we need to be part of the community and letting people know that, oh no, our kids go to the same schools you do.
Right.
So.
I love it. Yes, totally 100%. I think it's so powerful. So
thanks for having me.
Thank you, everybody, for listening in on today's Brand Clarity episode with Susie Liberatore. 2 things. First and foremost, please, if you liked this episode, please subscribe and leave some positive reviews. Also, don't forget to sign up for Stop Sending Your Customers to the Competition and get my insider secrets to compelling branding that converts. You can find that at branding-bridge.com. It's a free workbook for you to check out right now, all of the branding techniques and strategies that I use for my paying clients.